Hi, this is Anthony, parent of IRSMedic, and the phrase citizenship-based taxation, universal taxation, residency-based taxation, these are all thrown around. But what do they really mean? What does it mean to be taxed based on your citizenship? Joining me today is Keith Redmond and John Richardson, and we're going to help answer this question and try to get to a point of what things really mean by how they act in the real world. So, Keith, tell us what's going on with people. There seems to be some confusion over what the difference between citizenship-based taxation and residency-based taxation is.
No, you're absolutely right, Anthony, and thank you for this opportunity. I get a lot of feedback, if you will,
Yeah.
from Americans overseas, accidental Americans around the world, literally. And there seems to be a lack of understanding on how the U.S. practices its taxation as it pertains to the aforementioned populations. And there also seems to be a lack of understanding as it pertains to how basically the rest of the world practices its taxation that is deemed residency-based taxation. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really hone in on what the tenets are for each of those practices. And I thought that we could start out with what people deem or call CBT, which is citizenship-based taxation, which is what the U.S. practices. And, John, what do you think in regards to what really is the way the U.S. taxes
All
its
right.
citizenry?
Okay, Anthony, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for putting that post up on the screen. Well, this is a very, very difficult thing because the term citizenship-based taxation, actually, Anthony, would you do me a favor and put the other one up, not toward a definition, but the other one, circumstances of life, or
Circumstances of
circumstances of
Here we
birth.
go.
Yeah,
This is
no,
yep.
no, 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 that's for the third one.
That
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
there we go.
let's work
Circumstances
with
of
that one
life.
'cause I
There we
think
go. Yeah.
consolidate these a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay, so the basic problem here is that you're right, Keith. Citizenship taxation is a completely confusing term, and it's actually not even found anywhere in the Internal Revenue Code, oddly enough. Like the term accidental American, it's just a made-up term, right? That has no statutory
Right.
basis anywhere. So let's talk about what it really, really is. And I would invite listeners to maybe just close their eyes for a second as I go through this, because the top of this post is actually a video from a conference I once participated in. And about that time, President Obama's press secretary, Jay Kearney, made an announcement that the president is of the view that the circumstances of one's birth should never determine the outcome of one's life.
All
And
right. Yeah.
this I use this quote to lead off a discussion about
Mm.
citizenship taxation at this conference. But that's really the way to look at it, right? What the U.S. calls citizenship-based taxation is actually defining your tax residency based almost exclusively, naturalized citizens accepted, but almost exclusively on the circumstances of your birth. Because, well, you're born in the United States. Okay, that's clearly a that makes you a citizen. It's your circumstances of birth, though. Or you're born outside the U.S. to a U.S. citizen parent or parents. Again, that's circumstances of birth. And these are things that give you citizenship, right? Now, the point is that by the U.S. defining tax residency, making citizenship a sufficient condition for tax residency, what they're really doing is adopting a policy that the circumstances of your birth, yes, should determine your tax residency for life. Okay, now just pause for a minute and think about how incredibly absurd that is. That's what citizenship taxation really is. It's taxation based on the circumstances of your birth, unless, of course, you renounce, right? And not on the circumstances of your life. Now, the rest of the world is operating on the basis of tax residency that's circumstances of life. Where do you live, right? So I think that a very good way to define what citizenship taxation really is, well, the circumstances of your birth determine your tax residency for life. regardless of the circumstances of your actual life, right? I mean, it's really, really quite extraordinary. And if I might add, before I turn this over to Keith, that's how tax residency is defined. And that other post, I don't put it up right now, but the toward a definition for citizenship taxation really defines how citizenship taxation operates practically, in this sense that citizenship has no meaning for people who live in the United States because they live there, it's residence. Mm-hmm. Citizenship has no meaning for income sourced in the United States. What's fascinating is that citizenship, aka taxation based on circumstances of birth, has meaning only with respect to people who do not live in the United States, and that taxation applied only to non-US source income, right? So this is I think it's quite amazing stuff if we think about it that way. And I've tried to construct this to give people a way to think about it, what it really means, as opposed to the actual label of what people call it. Because the label, citizenship taxation, as Keith tells us, and he's right, is completely confusing, right? So, when we talk about a movement to get rid of citizenship taxation, what we're really talking about is, hey, it's time for the U.S. to stop defining tax residency just based on the circumstance of somebody's birth. And it is time for the United States to define tax residency the way the rest of the world does, in terms of the circumstances of their actual life, where they actually live. And I will close with that introduction.
Well, John, this is what I would say. It sounds like this. So if you're an American, you're born a tax slave, but you don't know that until you leave the U.S.
Anthony, the only meaning of a U.S. citizenship is a form of it's a form of worldwide tax residency for life. That's what it is.
Right. That's what
I'm a US citizen.
That's what we're all born with.
U.S. tax resident for life. That's all it means.
That's all it means.
Right. Yeah. And that keeps it very simple, and it is much clearer a definition and much more appropriate a definition for what people use as CBT. That's a much better definition, what you stated, John.
Yeah, I think it clarifies what it is and how it applies, as opposed to what it's called, which totally obscures the issue.
That's a great point. Yeah. These word games sort of get you off. Well, what's wrong with citizenship-based taxation? You're a citizen. You should be taxed on it, right? So that's you got to wonder who invented that phrase, right? Because it's not, it's not in the code. So it sounds a little bit like PR. I mean, actually, it's a euphemism, right? I mean, citizenship-based taxation doesn't sound bad by itself. Those words together. Oh yeah, that's good. Fine. Why not?
Anthony, I'm reminded of a Ronald Reagan line years and years ago, where he said, a supporter of communism is somebody who reads about it, okay? And a opponent of communism is somebody who understands it.
There you go. There you go.
I think we could easily say the same thing about this tax system. A supporter of citizenship taxation is somebody who just kind of reads the words, et cetera, and thinks, well, maybe that's good. An opponent of citizenship taxation is somebody who understands what it really is, and I suggest,
it actually lives it on a daily basis.
And I suggest the description that I just gave is probably the right way to view this.
Right. So, having said that, I think it's equally important that we talk about what people call residency-based taxation. And you certainly mentioned that as you were discussing the proper definition of CBT, that it's based on where you live in the world, not your circumstance of birth.
Yeah, circumstances of birth versus circumstances of life.
So logic, for me, states that the way for the U.S. to go to RBT, residency-based taxation, is that they must sever citizenship from tax residency. That's the proper definition of residency-based taxation. Am I correct? Am I understanding?
I think you're absolutely correct. And I would put it, even more precisely, under no circumstances can citizenship be relevant for tax residency.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why this is so important is that there are organizations out there who are promoting or supporting what they call RBT, but it actually is not RBT at all, because they don't support severing U.S. citizenship from tax residency.
You don't want to name names, Keith?
Well, I'm happy to do so. I mean, we have American citizens abroad, Democrats
Why don't we
abroad,
just say
Pacific.
everybody except seat?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's fine. Well, and everybody knows who the different organizations are,
well,
so
I
that's
mean,
fine.
I don't
So
think
wait a second. So what's going on right now? You're saying that, and so I guess so the phrase RBT is being co-opted by things that aren't residency-based taxation, and they're gonna slap a sticker on it. It says, "Oh no, it's
Right.
RBT,"
And
even though. So
and I
what? So
and
why are these groups doing that? And what are they?
I think
Well, I know
part of it is, and John, tell me what you think on this one. I think part of it is that they just don't have a true understanding of what residency-based taxation is. That's the only conclusion I can come up with, that they just don't understand. So they're putting forward something that is called RBT, but it has nothing really to do with RBT.
Well, I would say, and I would apply John's analogy. It sounds like these are the people who read about it but don't experience it.
Yeah.
They're reading about it, and honestly, a lot of those groups just want it. They're not. They want the taxes. They believe in it, and so they're just looking. I think they're looking to rebrand the disaster that they have created.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't know. Go ahead, please, John.
I think that basically what both of you say has varying degrees of truth depending, right? But to address your question, which I think, Keith, was, well, why is there this difficulty in getting people to understand that you have to sever citizenship from tax residency? And the first reason, I think, is that there's a huge amount of confusion between territorial taxation, citizenship taxation, right? So, for example, one group would say, well, the definition of residency-based taxation is that non-U.S. source income is not taxed. Actually, that's territorial taxation.
Right.
Not residency-based. But that's not so much the point here. I think that, broadly speaking, the difficulty is that everybody approaches this, and to see everybody's understanding of the harm of CBT is different. Some people see it as bank account access issues. Some people see it as foreign mutual funds, CFCs, phantom gains, sale of principal, any one of these things. And their concern is, not really changing the definition of tax residency, but solving their particular issue, right? So, if, for example, the designation of foreign mutual funds as PFIX went away, well, that would be good. What's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Or if we look at something like the buyer bill, well, why don't we, exempt people with incomes up to 400,000 and hang the rest out to dry, et cetera. So I think that basically, overwhelmingly, people in groups are concerned with the symptoms, the effects of this, circumstances of birth taxation, rather than going at the root cause, which, my view on this. I think that is harmful. I think it's absolutely wrong. I think it divides and conquers Americans abroad, and I think we can use that as perhaps a separate video.
Yeah, well, actually, I think we should end here. Let's wrap this up, because that's exactly right. That we have this division. People look for their own little carve out, and they won't get rid of the whole thing because for reasons why. But we all kind of need to unite on this to say, and I think this is the right way to do it, John. To say, look, and I love your quote here. No person whose life is impacted by taxation based on circumstances of birth should be left behind, right? Another great quote by another president.
Well, actually, Anthony, let's end with a great quote from a president, okay?
Okay.
Which I think does have some relevance and meaning here, and that is this: if we don't hang together, we will hang separately.
Oh,
and on that note, I think we move to the next podcast for today.
Let's move to the next podcast. What are we going to? What's our next topic for our next podcast?
I think we might talk about different group attitudes of different groups of Americans abroad towards the problem.
All right, so we're going to kind of explain, give some texture, like, here's the perspectives. All right, that sounds like a really great follow-up. Okay, This is Anthony Parent for Keith Redmond and John Richardson. We thank you for watching, and be sure to tune into our next episode as we sort of go over what people are thinking and maybe how they need to get all on the same page. Thanks for watching.